forth from the love of liberty in the fires of hope and prayer. With boundless faith in our destiny, we solemnly declare. Side by side we stand, islands of the blue Caribbean Sea, this our native land. We pledge our lives to thee. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation. Here every creed and race find an equal place, and may God bless our nation.
Heavenly Father, we come before you at the start of this new day, giving thanks for life, for health, and the opportunity to serve through this station. We ask for your divine presence to guide us in all we do. Bless this broadcast, that it may be a source of inspiration, joy, and unity to all who tune in. Whether near or far, may our words uplift, our music heal, and our message bring light to those who need it most. We pray for our listeners, wherever they may be. Grant them strength for the day ahead, peace in their hearts, and success in all they put their hands to. Cover those traveling with your protection, and those at home with your comfort and provision. Lord, may everything we do bring honor to you and be a blessing to others. Guide our steps, bless our efforts, and let this station be a vessel of positivity and hope. In your name we pray. Amen.
Your voice, your soundtrack, your station. New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
Well, this is Dr. Ricky Jai with a message for my people. Divided, we will fall. United, we shall stand. Hey, let's go. Hey, ba ba da ba 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 dee 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 ba ba da 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 day. Hey, I come to show what Chutney can do. I want to show what Kaiso can do. And here we go. Sing about crime, it's not my concern. But when bullets flying, everyone gets burned. As if Chutney singers don't feel the pain too. So I come with a Kaiso chutney for you. The struggles in life, we all face the same thing. I make this statement as undisputed chutney king. With homelessness, murders and vagrancy, please don't expect me to just sing about rum and roti. So tell them that this year Ricky
singing Kaiso chutney commentary.
Tell them this year Ricky Jai
Chutney commentary and try.
Crime is hurting me like it's hurting you. A chutney Kaiso is long overdue. You box me in one corner and the ring. I feel it's only chutney that I can sing. I want to address suffering and pain. Poverty and gangs give us a bad name. I hope all you see this is me fight too. I come to show what Kaiso chutney can do. Tell them that this year Ricky singing Kaiso chutney commentary. Tell them this year Ricky Jai giving chutney commentary. Ba ba da 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 dee 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 dee.
Welcome Rise up. It's the Net Radio Breakfast Show, bringing you the energy, music, and vibes to start your day right.
Does it matter if you like chutney or kaiso?
And that is exactly what we intend to do, to make sure we help you to start your day right. Good morning, everybody. Trinidad and Tobago, neighbors in the Caribbean, friends who are streaming all around the globe. We are happy to have you right here on New Era TT Radio, taking you above and beyond. Of course, I'm your Shirley Sir Charles. I want to say much thanks to the Heavenly Father for bringing us together for another day. Everything that we do, dear God, let it be a blessing on to you. Remember, this is our Get Up and Go as we welcome you inside of the Breakfast Show.
Wake up, it's a brand new dawn. The Breakfast Show got the vibes turned on. From Maracas Bay to the Savannah line, let's start the day in Caribbean prime. Good vibes rolling through the air. The Breakfast Show, energy everywhere. We talk, we laugh, we make you think. Grab your doubles or your morning drink.
Well, good morning, and welcome to the Breakfast Show on this Monday morning. It has been a rainy weekend, and it looks like it's going to be a rainy Monday. But I think there is still an adverse weather alert on yellow for Trinidad and Tobago, and of course, I think it ends at 6 p.m. tonight. So that's still on, but it's still Monday morning, and it's always a month. Well, it used to be for me a day that I would groan a lot and go, Monday, the hardest day of the week to get up to go to work. But we're here to make it a little easier for you on this Monday morning. Of course, let me say good morning to to all of the viewers and listeners across the planet, wherever you are listening and watching us from, and of course also in Trinidad and Tobago. You may realize one of our co-hosts is missing. Brendan Stephen, he may not be in today. He may not be in today. So Sir Charles and I will be manning the ship, so to speak. Good morning, Sir Charles.
Morning, Richard. And how are you this morning?
Me, oh my God, I had a packed weekend. Well, I mean, I didn't have theater, which would make it even more packed. And I had certain issues I was dealing with this weekend, and oh Lord have mercy. But you know, some weekends are just have unexpected things that just pop up. It was one of those weekends, but all is well on the home front, so to speak. And but it was pretty packed. And I mean, it was rainy, so you didn't really feel like leaving the house, quite frankly, because it was just constant rain on Saturday and Sunday to a lesser extent. And of course, wherever you went, there was rain. And of course, there were certain areas in Trinidad and Tobago that are prone to flooding that would have had some floods. I saw that they had issued the alerts for what the capacity will for rivers and stuff like that. I mean, I don't have it with me, but I saw that they issued that yesterday. But but a lot of people who live in areas in the flood, would have been very nervous yesterday.
Yeah, I can imagine. I enjoyed the rain. I mean, because I love the rain actually, especially when I really don't have to go anywhere. So I went downstairs, just to cover up the car there, because since it's burnt out, it's just there. Now the rain coming, then want to just things. I went cover it down yesterday, and the rain came. So I say that I just take the bath in the rain one time. I haven't had a bath in the rain for a long time, and that felt so good, so good, So.
Well, opposite to you, I find rain should only fall between 1 to 4 a.m. That's it. Won't confuse the day by making things inconvenient, and because it causes more traffic. There's more traffic in the road because everybody is slower. It's just inconvenient running from place to place. And some places, sometimes it's going to be in a store and it's starting to come through the roof and all sorts of crap.
So you want rain with conditions.
Yes.
And then you want sunshine with conditions too.
Not really. Sunshine could be sunshine. But rain,
You know,
Too much rain always causes bacchanal.
I have one of my friends. He's always said to me, "It could take rain anytime except on a Saturday night. It mustn't fall on a Saturday night." That's when he want to go out and he want to do this and he had to go and party. And, we say any other night it can fall, but just not on a Saturday night.
Well, I mean, according to something, there were multiple areas apparently hit by flooding. Monday morning, activities across Trinidad and Tobago were all but halted Sunday morning as the intertropical convergence zone dumped hours of heavy rainfall across the country from Saturday night into yesterday afternoon. That's what Saturday started off fine, and really around 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon, that's when it really started. But for most of Saturday, at least where I was, it was fine, and then it started to slowly change.
Sunday was early here, early on my side. More around.
I mean, but it wasn't continuous. It stopped at points, but yeah. The massive rainfall triggered street flooding in multiple areas, and pleas for fast preventative action by the authorities ahead of the 2025 rainy season. We ain't in the rainy season yet. We ain't in the rainy season yet. As forecast last week, the TNT Meteorological Services mid-May has brought the first hints of the rainy season. As I talk about rainy season, the ITC these heavy thunderstorms and strong winds. The showers started late on Saturday night across TNT, and by morning had progressed a relentless downpour that lasted into after midday. Most of the impact was seen across Trinidad. Tobago apparently was spared a bit, and impacted many usual Sunday morning activities such as early morning worship, market, and grocery shopping. By dawn yesterday, some areas were already seeing water in the streets. According to social media reports, people in areas such as Piaco, Las Lomas, Helena, Bamboo Number 2, and Diego Martin got to work early in taking precautions against possible residential flooding. This included collecting sandbags from regional corporations and moving pets, vehicles, and etc., which were located, and appliances and valuables were secured. By mid-morning, street flooding was being reported in downtown Port of Spain, Diego Martin, Cocorite, and Santa Cruz. Many said they had prepared for some showers, but were shocked by the intensity of yesterday's downpour. On the North Coast Road from Arima, people were also on the lookout for landslides. So that's just some of what happened yesterday. Continuing. Yeah.
A lot of people just caught up in it, got affected by it.
Yeah. And anytime there's a lot of rain, some areas in Trinidad and Tobago get nervous. Especially if you're prone for flooding, because you're close to a river of some sort, and you just get anxious with the amount of rain. You get anxious about it.
Yeah. Because people normally when it's raining like that, I mean, in some areas, some people constantly, yearly, have to be throwing out things, replacing things. It's really frightening to be.
I mean, in Arima, we don't really flood much. I mean, there may be one or two little parts of Arima that may get some flooding, but by and large, Arima, because of how Arima is on a higher level. Anytime you're entering Arima, you have to go up. So there's a lot of runoff that we are less affected by flooding generally. Like in the area where I live in Arima, of course, we've never flooded. Has never happened. And then going up onto Calvary and stuff like that, you wouldn't think of flooding up there because those are just hills and hills and hills. So a lot of Arima doesn't flood, but there's some lower lying areas that may get some, but generally doesn't flood. But other areas of the country, I know, like Diego Martin and stuff, they have recently I can't remember like in years gone past that Digger Martin used to flood, but in recent years, yes, they do. I can't remember like when I was going to school because there was a point at which I lived in Digger Martin during the school day. I can't remember that. Can't remember it. But during the school week, Monday to Friday, I used to stay by my aunt in Diamond Vale, and there was never a flooding issue. I can't remember ever being flooded during those couple of years I stayed there, but apparently it floods now.
It's flooding now. And all heading down in the west and the Western Main Road and all those places in the city, amount of water that collected so quickly. Cars getting stuck in that area there, not able to come back out, and all those different kinds of things. It's frightening, man.
But you know what? It's time for good news. We started kind of with the weather, which wasn't really good news. So we kind of broke protocol this morning. So let's get into our good news and see what's happening in our good news segment today. Of course, this is
Send me and now, jump up and wave as the plan now. Just up and girl with the man now. Whoa, cause it ain't so sweet, yeah. Sometimes I feel like I don't wanna go home, no. Cause it ain't so sweet, yeah. Sometimes I feel like I don't wanna leave, oh no. But right now I feel like a jump down. I feel like a right down. I want to hold on a bumper right now, I can turn back.
All right, so that's just a little bit of good news. Just remind you of the things that we take for granted in Trinidad. There's so many videos of this type. I keep coming across other types of videos, and so I saved some potentially as good news. But feel free to share whatever you think is good news with us. You can send it as a WhatsApp link to the number so that we could feature in our good news segment what you thought was good news. So, on our WhatsApp number, it's 281-1315. So if you have it saved in your WhatsApp contacts, which you should, you can send us a link, and Sir Charles can always forward it.
Yeah, we can do that.
Yeah, so you can say this is good news and send the link, and we'll play it on the program. And you can say who you are, and we'll say courtesy of X, Y, or Z. See how much we're including you? Because sometimes people do send. I know CJ had sent, and Debbie from Mova had sent stuff for the news, which I used. So sometimes when you're searching, for different kinds of clips, just to feature positivity, not only in Trinidad and Tobago, but up the Caribbean too, because we know we're broadcasting up the Caribbean.
Yeah, that'd be okay if they include the Caribbean.
Yeah, so a special good morning to those of you listening to and watching us on M&E TV up the Caribbean. So you can also send your good news clips wherever you are across the planet. You can send it, and you can send it to the WhatsApp number 281-1315, and we'll feature it. So you say good news courtesy whoever.
But for people who are audio and not visual, you need to explain what that good news is about, because all they hear is just the music.
Oh, but this one, for those of you who are listening,
right?
Usually it's a visual clip.
People and stuff.
Yeah, but this one was about there's no place like Trinidad, the clip that we just saw, and was just images, but video images of different things, the food, the beauty of Trinidad, and the food and the
still have a coconut man too.
Of the coconut man, because it's the coconut. So just images like that. So sometimes people who are listening may not get the full benefit of seeing what the good news is about, unless we're talking about the good news, because sometimes we talk about good news. We don't play anything. But so that was our good news, and of course, it's time to greet all of those people in the comment section for this morning who joined us early o'clock. Who was first? Was it romantic?
No, but Susan, like she slept late today.
No, this person was first. Valerie Mendoza.
Yeah.
Good morning to the breakfast team. So she was first this morning. And then we have other people coming in. Grand rising to the breakfast crew from Anthony Tinto, and to all those locked on. Shalom and happy birthday to Maria and Marva. Have a great day, cuz. Happy birthday, Maria Marva. Good morning to the breakfast crew Titans. Yesterday was my birthday. I had a relaxing day with the rain. Well, happy belated to you, Joyce Phillip. You know, birthdays are always to be celebrated. Susan Jessup, yeah. People beat you this morning, Susan. God Almighty and Jesus Christ, thank you for sparing lives to see another day. Blessed God. Bless God. Bless good morning, Sir Charles, Richard Wendell, and always Suzanne, Suzette, and Mrs. Gemma. Sean Flair says, good morning. That's Melissa. Ossie Molyneux, good morning to all. Bless, amazing morning to all. Thank God for showers of blessings. Thank God we have a government who ministers is on the ground meeting the needs and attending concerns of the citizens. That's romantic, intense, and passionate love maker. Well, you real giving your CV there, boy. Even the weather. Oh, you're saying more stuff to other people. Carol Guevara, blessed and wonderful Monday morning to all.
Morning, Carol.
Morning, Ambrose Blanc. Morning to the breakfast crew. Robert Taylor says, good morning, guys. Marlon Motley, good morning, Marlon. Good morning, guys. He says, Boy Bedesi from David, good morning, everyone. Morning blessings, Wendell, Richard, and St. Charles. Be safe on the road. That's Cheryl Seeley. Ingrid from Tucson, Arizona. Good morning. Blessings from Tucson, Arizona.
Morning, Ingrid.
Good morning, Ingrid. Romantic champion start the morning bullying already. Okay, I didn't. I see it. That's Arch Nemesis. Good morning, gentlemen. Happy Monday. Do have a great day. From Arima, good morning to the breakfast team and to all listeners and viewers. Have a fantastic start to the new work week. Good morning, gentlemen from Trinidad and Tobago. Miguel Gonzalez says, good morning. Kathy Ann Charles, good morning, everyone. Have a blessed, productive day. Lambert Bruce, good morning, guys. Ilarizan, how you pronounce that? Ilarizan. Good morning, guys. Brent Hackshaw, good morning, gentlemen. A blessed day to you all. A blessed Monday morning, guys. Have a wonderful day. That's from Cheryl Johnson. Joyce Phillip again. Richard Jammett, good morning. Richard Jammett from Rio Claro. Please say hi to my mother, Josephine. Good morning, Ma Josephine. Good morning to you. Special good morning to you. Good morning, gentlemen from Slick Money Grip. Wayne Ramsey says, good morning, guys. Anne Noel says, good morning, Richard St. Charles, and we'll have a blessed and wonderful day from Oshawa, Ontario. Love you guys. Thank you. We love you too. Good morning, Mrs. R. Dear Celeste. Good morning, all. Cat Consulting Services, guys. Grand Rising, gentlemen. Wendell shouldn't be allowed vacation yet. You just started a job. Hiya, Papa.
Flood
Richard Jeremiah. Good morning, Sir Richard. Huh?
Flood
Jennings, good morning. Here we go. Good morning, breakfast crew. Good morning, guys, from Maria Cellier. And thanks for the birthday greeting, cuz Anthony Tinto. Also, well, happy birthday to you, Maria Cellier. Good morning, everyone, from Diana Hamill. Garvin Frank says, good morning. CJ from New York, good morning, all. Have a fantastic day. Love always. Good morning, CJ. Big morning to you, CJ. Good morning, all, from Jaron Joseph. Julia S. Batiste, good morning, Julia. And good morning, Net, and all the live chat. Have a nice day, everyone. That's from Diane Payne.
Hey, Diane, good morning, man.
And Mrs. R says, agreed. And that's it. So we've gone through some of the comments that came in bright and early this morning. And good morning to all of you.
Let me also say good morning to Frank. He's locked on very early. Miss Sampson, good day to you. Miss Sampson, I hope that you're getting us good where you are. To Carolyn out there in Caranage, good morning. Carolyn, how did you make out with that flooding yesterday, boy? And, well, of course, the people who straddle all the platforms, like Slick Money Group, good morning to you. And good morning to the folks out there at GNC Auto. I know they're always locked on. Didn't hear them actually this morning, but I know they're always there too. So good morning to all you.
Of course, we have a special guest this morning, Carolyn Seepersad-Bachan will be joining us this morning to talk about energy and whether the reopening of Petrotrin makes any sense. So she'll be discussing that and other energy matters. Of course, she is a former Minister of Energy under the People's Partnership. And so she will have lots of opinions on the issues, and she's very versed and understands the energy sector. So she'll be talking to us about that. Does reopening Petrotrin make economic sense? Maybe it does. It doesn't. You'll hear what Carolyn Seepersad-Bachan has to say about it in the next hour. You should not miss that interview. Carolyn is always fun to talk to, and she always has a lot of opinions on how she sees stuff. And so she'll be a good guest to have in the next hour. So look forward to that. Because of course, moves are on to reopen Petrotrin and OWTU and concerned businesses. I think maybe in the area, I can't remember. There was a concerned businesses group.
Yeah, there was so many chambers. So many, I think, some chambers. They are. I think they are
linked up to OWTU with regard to reopening the Petrotrin and the kind of.
So at least you have some business interests that feels it can and will be viable.
Well, yeah, and they also have to seek international financing to finance it. And I'm sure Carolyn will have a lot to say on that. And of course, the issues of which we had discussed with Dr. Krishna Prasad and Dr. Dax Driver. Dr. Krishna Prasad, of course, is an energy expert with many years' experience, and Dax Driver is the head of the energy chamber. We had a conversation with them, I think it was last week or the week before, about the whole energy sector. And of course, she would also have opinions on what they discussed, the issues of Grenada, Guyana, Suriname, and Trinidad and Tobago gas. Should Trinidad and Tobago just become service? One of the issues could be, should Trinidad and Tobago just concentrate on
Hello? Okay, I just lost you. Yeah, you just tried to make one sudden a noise in between there. And I
seen an alert come across the street that your mic disconnect. Your mic, sometimes your mic gets disconnected for whatever reason.
Yeah.
And I'm watching the
news. It started to make a kind of growling kind of noise.
And that was not my stomach. And I started to, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, why is my mic disconnected? But I'm still talking, huh? Rather than just clicking it back on. So so that whole energy sector in conversation, which continues to be an important one for the Trinidad and Tobago economy, we'll be having in the next hour with Carolyn Seepersad-Bachan.
Richard, let me raise something with you here before we go into the headlines and stuff. Because it's something that's worrying me. When we talk about how Trinidad and Tobago we're supposed to be moving forward, every time it starts to rain, it now starts to rain. We're not in the rainy season as yet. We have this situation with WASA. So it starts to rain, WASA starts to lock off the water. There are places around the world, it does have storm, hurricane, earthquake, water that's been running all the time. What it is in Trinidad and Tobago that we can't
Charles, why are you trying to set me on fire this morning?
Why is it that we cannot have 10 minutes the water as the rain start to come down, boom, they lock off the water in Cora. We have no water up to now. And in places like where I'm at, we don't have tanks. We don't have space to put up tanks like some other people who have 3 and 4 tanks in the yard and that sort of thing, because they know water is going to be going. But come on, Wasa had to get the act together, man.
Charles, you're provoking me. You're provoking me. Because that is something that Wendell and I discuss all the time. This issue, and they have a word for it. It's called turbidity.
Yeah.
Read my lips. Turbidity. That is the name of the word that they constantly give us. Anytime there is too much rain, they will say, rivers will the rivers or water courses have been affected, and as a result of turbidity,
areas still have no water.
Yeah, some of the places will shut down. Wendell and I always talk about how other countries survive with massive weather, what kind of weather issues, and this is not a hurricane we're talking about, people.
It's normal rain.
This is just rain. But it is not like it's a hurricane that and you expect that utilities will be affected because it was a severe weather event. This is not a severe weather event. This is like yellow level alert 1, yellow level alert 2, whatever it is. And we get affected. And turbidity is the word of choice. Wendell and I always used to say, if you go any part of the world and you hear people talking and somebody say the word turbidity, 9 out of 10 they're Trinidadian because it's only we know that word. Every time you hear somebody say, turbidity, you say,
Turbidity, yeah.
Any friends.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm from Trinidad originally. Because turbidity is a word we know. Americans don't know the word turbidity. Yeah. Europeans don't know the word turbidity. It's not something that they will hear. I mean, you may know the word, but it's not something they would use.
No. But and as you say, because like, okay, we didn't have rain all the time. On Saturday, we get some rain. As soon as the rain starts, I don't know how, if the dams are just suddenly full up quick. That was it. About an hour after the rain started, the water gone. It came back yesterday morning about after 6, and by 8 o'clock it gone again. Before you could even get up to realize what's taking place, it come and it gone. I find what's I need to do plenty better than that, man.
Yeah. I would like Caribbean people of the islands to tell us if they know the word turbidity. People of the islands who are watching us, do you all know the word turbidity? Is that a frequent word used by your water authorities, whoever they are? And every time rain falls a little heavily, do you all get a cut off in water? I would love to know. Because I have no clue if the other islands, talk about water as much as we do in terms of, the issue of water distribution and stuff like that. I remember I studied in Barbados for 2 years, and I never had a concern that when I turned on the tap that there wasn't going to be water.
What is it?
I don't know if Barbados had its own level of water problems, but I never experienced it in terms of where I stayed with other students. By the time you turned on the tap, there was water. You wanted to bathe, there was water. You understand? It was never a concern. And there was never a conversation that I saw happening in newspapers in Barbados or anything about water, etc., etc. I don't know. Maybe I missed it. Maybe I wasn't paying attention, but I just never.
And when you hear people talk about it, because I was asking somebody about it, and the person was saying they live in different parts of the US and stuff. They've been there for 30-something years. They don't know nothing about no water. And 30-something years, if you get a little day or a week, I might say, okay, 30-something years, yeah. But
I always talk about that when it's an indictment that since 1962, it's an indictment on us and the people who have governed us that we haven't been able to solve this problem, that it should not even be a topic of conversation between us. We are 1.4 million people. As I always tell them, we are a suburb of any major city. I say 1.4 million people is probably the amount of people going to lunch in a park in Beijing and sitting down to eat. And we can't provide water for 1.4 million people. Come on. Give me a break.
That's not what I said.
And it's a problem that spans parties. Spans parties. It's not something that was solved in any one party governing us. It has spanned decades.
Yeah. And just to share how things they don't get things over. I mean, like, I have been in this area here for probably about 18 or 19 years, and in this core area, and this kind of headache all the time. It's not getting any better at all. After all that time, so at least, okay, it might be a few hours or something, but it's not getting any better.
Absolutely not. And it seems as if it's not getting any better. I think it got a little better in Arima. But what I would say is WASA has gotten more communicative. They have designated people in our area that will reach out to you and tell you, and look, this is the situation. Are you getting water? Or you have become more communicative. Mm-hmm. Because I live in Central Arima, which is even preposterous because you have the whole of Central Arima, all those businesses that water trucks have to be pulling up to give water at certain points in time because water supply is not consistent. Now, I know they're doing some work via an IDB loan at the Guanapo plant, which needed some refurbishing. and well, to solve the problem of a 24-hour supply in a region. Well, I don't know what's going to happen under this new government. I assume it's going to continue because it's not a new government. But the IDB loan and the agreement with the IDB loan and what is happening in Guyana, I hope it's continuing. It better be continuing. Never put that.
Let's hope that wasn't torn up on Thursday, you know.
Nah, I hope not.
Let's hope that wasn't torn up, Richard.
Anyway, let me get to the dailies, the 3 dailies.
What's in the news today?
And then we'll take some of your calls on this Monday morning. So let me start with the headlines today in our 3 daily newspapers in Trinidad and Tobago this morning. I'll start with the headlines. The Daily Express for today, let me tell you what the headline is. PM orders ministers to hit the ground as rain beats down on TNT. Rapid flood response. Khadija urges caution as river levels rise. And there is a picture. What is this picture about? Residents of Railway Road Extension in Davashagonas clear clogged drains. So that's the main picture. On the back page, of course, the Daily Express does news on the back page too. It's a kind of wraparound with pictures of different areas where stuff is going on with regard to possible flooding. So you have the councillor for Kelly Village, and Warrenville, Kamla, Fagu, and Tunapuna Piago Regional Corporation Chairman Josiah Austin. You have different pictures of people dealing with the heavy downpour. So it's a kind of wraparound, but it's not a wraparound, but that's what's on the back page. And in the sports, Appleby happy with Godolphin Epsom pair, whatever that means. I think that is the this was a horse race. Which horse race was this? People who follow horse racing know what I'm talking about. Alcaraz down Sinner to claim Italian Open title, and Arsenal secure return to UCL. So that's the front and the back page of the Daily Express. Newsday for today. Agriculture Minister to revisit compensation process. Farmers flooded, relief ahead. Agriculture Minister Ravi Rataram surveys the flood-affected farmlands in Aranguez. So there's a picture of that. Gun license process to go online. So the gun license process is to go online. And on the back pages, Kenyan wins midnight TT marathon. Akesa rules under the stars. And Joseph hits 62 Windies women win practice match. That issue of those late night marathons was news to me. When a couple of months ago, we had come into Port of Spain. I think we had a plane in San Fernando, I think. And we came into Port of Spain, and I'm talking Sir Charles. This is close to midnight.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, as you're coming, you're thinking you have a clear drive up to Port of Spain to go where we were heading. We're going to a place to just hang out. And everywhere that you turn, sometimes you met these cones in the road saying you can't pass, and they're like, what the hell is going on at close to midnight in town?
Yeah.
What could they possibly be doing? And when you got up to the savannah, you realized it was a race. So apparently these kind of late midnight races are a fad now. They said it's been going on for like a couple of years. I've never encountered them before. And that only this year I realized they were on.
Yeah.
So,
cooler conditions, I suppose.
Yeah, and I suppose there's a kind of excitement running late in the night.
Yeah. And anything that is great.
Competitively, I know some people run late in the night, but not competitive.
Yeah, anything that kind of new like that is people naturally kind of gravitate. They like that kind of newness, you know?
Yeah. But it's been going on for a while. I just didn't know. Thunder Crush Nuggets advance to West Finals. Titans seal IPL playoff spot. Central Sports repeat as National League champs. All of that is part of the sports in the Newsday. The Trinidad and Tobago Guardian, our final of the 3 dailies this morning. The headline, flooded out, over 40 reports of adverse impacts as heavy rainfall drenches Trinidad. Padarath promises no hike in electricity rates. And the main picture is the people sheltering. And fruit vendor gunned down in home invasion. And on the back page, Red Force Limited pays TTCB 4.8 million in fees. So Red Force Limited pays TTCB $4.8 million in fees. And that's it for your 3 dailies this morning. And this is the point at which we can open up the line to take some of your calls before we head to our morning.
Richard, somebody is telling me Linda is out there in London. She said she has been there 20 plus years. And since she's been there, once the water was cut, and she got a notice 2 months in advance that the water would have been cut on that particular time. Oh my gosh. That is developed country status, right?
I don't want to tell it.
That is developed country status, I'm telling you. In Trinidad and Tobago, oh my word. Any of you, we taking your calls, right? 281-1315. You can call us.
Stability, the word of the day.
Richard, that whole story that you read just now about the gun licenses to go online and that sort of thing.
I could read a little more.
Yeah, why does we just treat everything like we're trying to invent like we are the first to do it? Why is this thing giving us so much problems to get it right? It have no template, no way around the word that we can follow?
Well, I mean, where in the world, it depends on what you're talking about. If you're talking about the US, they're more liberal with their gun licenses than any other country on the planet. I mean, but if you look at European countries and stuff, I'm sure they have a lot of restrictions with regard to firearm licenses like we do. So not any and everybody has a license. I think Australia may be fairly liberal too, but if there's anybody in Australia that...
Yeah, but we must have something that we could use, look at, and even so we take a part here and a part there to get it right. I find Trinidad and Tobago real. But anyway, we have a caller there. Let's take the call. Caller, good morning to you.
I want to agree with you, Sir Charles. We do things like if we now inventing the wheel here, we have a trial and error. And we have so much countries out there that we could cut and paste and jump ahead of the game. I want to agree with you 100%. But what I want to talk about this morning is something I heard over the weekend, where refers a topic that I already spoke about on this program, concerning the police officer in Tobago that shot the man that was handcuffed. I was based on the press conference on Mr. Eli. This police officer is still on active duty. No suspension, no desk duty, no nothing. He is still on active duty based on the sentiments of Mr. Eli, and that is something, to me, seems extremely wrong with that. Right? You had a man handcuffed, though he was putting up a little resistance because he was fearful that this police officer was going to kill him. And sure enough, this police officer killed him while handcuffed, shot and killed him while handcuffed. And there seems to be no consequences. I mean, not paying attention to that at all.
Wow. The guy died with Lincoln?
Yes, he died.
Wow.
He died. Another situation also happened in Tobago where someone died. I don't remember exactly who it is, but when I heard they just did the autopsy like last week, but they died like a couple of weeks ago. So we still have this problem of Tobago having to send a GMO to Tobago, and whenever they get around to it, and I have a problem with that. Why doesn't Tobago have their own GMO? And people have to be waiting weeks to do an autopsy for the deceased in Tobago. It's beyond my understanding. All right, so I just want to bring up those two things on the front burner.
Okay, no problem.
Why would it take long to set up a DMO in Tobago, though?
Yeah,
you would think replacements would be kind of a rote kind of issue that once somebody's moving on, they resign. Because people don't just suddenly leave a position. They give advance notice that they're leaving. Whatever advance notice. And if it's a retirement, you know it's coming up. Why would you take so long when for DMO? I mean, if that is true, I can't understand why it would take so long.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Hi, good morning, caller. Hello, good morning. caller. Like, you're not sure if he's there. So let's take another caller.
Acting Police Commissioner Junior Benjamin says there has been a noticeable post-election increase in firearm users' license applications, and the police service is embracing technology to deal with the expected continuous rise. And people want firearms. The UNC, while in opposition, promised to make legal gun ownership easier if it won the election. While addressing the media after her first cabinet meeting on May 8th, Prime Minister Carolyn Seepersad-Bachan encouraged law-abiding citizens to apply for their firearm users' licenses. Benjamin told the newspaper while he does not have the exact figures, there has been an uptick in the number of applications received weekly. The applications are coming and people are sending it more rapidly. So we believe it's only the tip of the iceberg and more persons are going to apply.
Oh, yeah. For sure. Caller, good morning to you.
Good morning, Sir Charles. Richard, good morning.
Morning.
Richard, did I miss something with Wendell, where he's off today?
Flag
Yeah, but
material.
he may join us later, he said.
Yeah.
Okay. You saw that clip I sent you yesterday? That's how I am right now.
Okay, I get the picture clearly.
Yes, that's how I am right now. You must show the people how Zena be and what my children, who my children are. You know what I want to say good morning to all those who looked on at home and abroad, and good morning CJ, Rena, DS, all the crew. So that's what I have to say until the thing build up hot, and I'll probably call back.
Okay,
So
no problem.
later.
Thanks very much, Zena.
So, while waiting for other calls to come in, Junior Benjamin also said, so we have to make sure that we are prepared to handle the increase and also seek to put things in place to ensure that we are able to deal with those things. He said police are also in the process of making the process available online in anticipation of a rising surge in FUL applications. Benjamin said having the process available online is beneficial to all stakeholders, including applicants. He explained this is all part of the police service's drive to rebrand itself and become more people-friendly and technology-driven.
Wow. Hold on there, Richard. Hello, good morning, caller.
Wait, Sir Charles, after all the money that the Ministry of National Security, in its current form now, it's Ministry of Defense and Ministry of Homeland Security, after all the money that National Security get from all those years, all now becoming technology-driven.
I know that is something else that will tick you off. Right.
People just talking on this.
Good morning.
Morning, caller.
Hi guys, how you guys going? You know what's it's sad to see still that I heard you talking about developed countries and third world countries, and it's a sad thing. I've been this year makes it 45 years since I'm in the United States, and I left Trinidad, and basically because of my job, I'm able to travel around and roam the earth. And you know, you go to these countries and you see how they develop, but what you're really seeing, think of it this way, and this is how I see it, and many people like myself see it. And it hurts when I hear people saying, oh, in this countries like that, and they try to compare Trinidad. Then they have so much human rights violations in these developed countries. And then they want to put in other people. And what you're seeing now in these developed countries, it's like a criminal, whether it's murder, thief, or whatever, they're all guilty of it. Go take a shower, put on perfume. So what you see now is a perfume covering up the stink of their history. All right, Trinidad don't have the kind of human rights America and Europe has. Trinidad has never invaded nobody's country and pillaged their country and make themselves enrich themselves. So of course they consider themselves great, developed. Look, England call themselves Great Britain. Who gave them that name? Go back in history and take a look. So be careful when you're comparing Trinidad and the Caribbean and third world countries with these so-called developed countries, because a lot of wrong going on here in these countries. You know? So you all have a good morning.
Okay.
Thank you.
Well, when I mean, like sometimes the inner workings and the politics and those things, but when we talking things like water and roads and some other things like that, and and healthcare in some of those places, and no doubt about it, it's far superior than what we get here in Trinidad and Tobago. Good morning to you, Miss Sampson.
Good morning, gentlemen. Concerning the DMO, Mr. Hines was on Power 102 and he said that they was going to give out some, what you call this thing is give out free education to study something. The word now slip me anyhow. My granddaughter studied forensic and went down there, worked for 1 year and up to now didn't get any salary. And it's a job that most young people don't want. She just love it and cannot get a way to get in there to do what she like to do. And scholarship, I think was he said it had 50 scholarship or something so.
Right.
And when I called the godly gentleman, he told me he never said so. And he was on Power 102 stating that they're going to give out that. So because Mr. Divine always used to be complaining how much body he have to say about and whatnot. Concerning the firearm, good. How you know who is a good citizen to give a firearm? Until somebody piss them off, they can't be giving out this thing willy-nilly. I will not get one.
It wouldn't be like that. Thanks very much for Samson.
I assume there'll be some sort of background check.
Of course,
yeah, because according to the article, now I don't understand how this is going to work. Yeah? I mean, the acting commissioner of police is talking about the process going online, but it still gets bottlenecked at the position of the commissioner of police because he's the one who has to sign off on it. So how does making it go online make it easier? It's just that more digital files are now coming to you, but it's only one person actually signing off on the actual FUL license. Now there may be a committee that's dealing with background checks and suggesting to the commissioner to sign off. But to me, the entire process needs to be revamped. And take it out of the police. Let there be a committee that deals with firearm licenses. The police will still have some intersect with it because they can do the background checks and stuff and have a process and a workflow for that background check that says this person passed the background check. They can be approved, and that approval goes to the committee, and that committee signs off on it, which is separate and distinct from the TTPS. Yeah. Because if you have a surge in applications for firearm licenses, why would you have police resources being bogged down, some of them at least, just dealing with firearm licenses? Isn't it more productive for them to be dealing with stuff elsewhere and not a separate committee deals with that? I mean, to me, that to me makes for a more productive workflow. Who am I and what do I know?
Yeah. Caller, good morning to you.
Hi, Sir Charles. Morning. Good morning. Good morning, Richard.
Good morning.
If you are hearing us, Richard, good morning to you. Not Richard, Gwendell. Good morning to you. So that is, Richard, that's my point. Going online to apply for a firearm user's license, would it make it easier when is only the commissioner has to sign off on it? That doesn't make sense. And then from what has happened in the past, when they said it is so tedious and years taken, that ain't going to solve that problem. Because to me, because of what the former opposition leader said and now Prime Minister, I figure more people might be applying for FULs. So it might be like oversubscribed if I could use that word.
Yeah.
So one police commissioner who's acting, when would he get time to do that? So I don't think they had to have a different process, a totally different process, I find, to cover that. I'm not looking for one, but still, the amount of people who want, such as you sound like you want one real bad.
Now, which man that me start the song again?
When I was talking just now.
No.
Oh gosh. Anyway, yesterday's weather. Well, I mean, not unusual, and I don't say anything wrong with it, but such as correct me if I'm wrong, somebody could correct me, and we below sea level, because I have been to Guyana, and I could tell you, water like stagnant there, right? When I died some years ago, I haven't been there within recent times, but the time when I went, the couple of times I went, water all about the place, and there was no rain, There was no rain. Some of the days, and the day that rain fell, it was just more water. And when it ran off, it came back to the amount that was there when I first saw it. But I know they are very, very low below the sea level. So I don't know our country, like down in the west, how it's so low and close to the sea. That might be part of the problem why Police rain floods in 10 minutes after rain. But and last point concerning water, I'm living here 21 years and where I'm at now, and I never had problem for water. 21 years. I don't even use a tank. Well, I have tanks just in case. I have a pump that never used, that spoiled twice. And for 21 years, I'd stopped using pump even to every water day. I don't want to use it so often. But I had to buy one December because the pressure was a little low. Even when water coming by, I just wanted more water, to wash down the yard and to use the upstairs and so on. But 21 years, I could never, other areas I doubt that happening.
Yeah, well,
But
you're
I'm
very
not,
lucky, Valerie.
I'm not proud of what WASA does, because my former area in Champlain, we never used to have water. So I'm glad for my 21 years of water, 24/7. But WASA is still need to back up for other areas. Thank you.
All right, okay. Adam, go high up the road by Richard. a little too far down the eastern. Go back up the road. Yeah, but all that application thing online is probably just going to, as I say, create a bigger bottleneck. It's just more applications to deal with because people will apply, and that's probably just the application process. You still have to go through all the other rigors because it is a process, and I know they have a process that takes a while because Gary Griffin said that. Right. Good morning, caller.
Good morning. I want to challenge the former caller that seemed to be making excuses for the commissioner as to when he will have time for that. The commissioner doesn't go out and do no vetting and investigation. They have a body that does that before it gets to the commissioner's desk. When it gets to the commissioner's desk, it's just for him to sign it off. The commissioner doesn't go and vet nobody or investigate who have a criminal background or whatever.
Yeah.
But like I said before, for some reason, the higher in rank you get, the more difficult it is to sign your name. Because that is all the commissioner has to do. Right? And when you hear people like Lola Christopher, when asked the question, why haven't you signed off on any firearm user's license? She said it. I was busy. Nobody can be that busy that you can't sign your name. You understand? Sometimes when you go in a government building, is you waiting on a document, and it's because somebody in the office is signing it here. When you go in the bank, something about signing the name when the people are just depending on you for information or feedback, it gets difficult. The higher in rank you get, it gets more difficult to sign your name.
I think we have to leave it there for that conversation because we're getting closer to news coming up at 7 and we haven't done our morning poll as yet.
So our morning poll is now on the page. Are you in favor of firearm licenses being easier to get? So that's our poll this morning. Are you in favor of firearm licenses being easier to get? Because that's apparently one of the goals.
Richard, you want me to write?
Huh?
You want me to write on you as you can read?
Yeah, we could do that, even though
I could keep score to free up your area there.
So that's our poll this morning. Are you in favor of firearm licenses being easier to get? Well, it's starting off with Miguel Gonzalez. He says yes. Anthony Atwell says yes. Donna Ramlochan says, I grew up in the 60s. That isn't it. Annie Bunyan says no. Romantic, intense, and passionate lover says yes, yes. Boy Bedesi says yes, yes. Yes, Lips says no. Donna Ramlochan, no. Gemma, what is this? Donna Ramlochan. Look at this good speeding. Gemma Brewster says certainly not. Wayne Joseph says no. DL says yes, of course. Susan Jessup, no to the poll. Michael Oliver, no. Kazim Mohammed, no. Sam Lovell, 91, yes. Marlon Motley says no. Far Rockaway says yes. Lindsay Theroux says, okay. I don't really have a vote. Benson Stanton says yes. That's some of the votes that I have on the comment stream. Of course, you can vote via Facebook and YouTube by putting your vote in the comment section, yes or no, and we'll get it here instantly. Afinba Collins says yes. And so that's some of our votes here. I don't know if you have any on WhatsApp, Richard.
Yeah, I have a few of them. Kenwin says yes. Joyce says no. Black Pearl says no. Miss Sampson says yes. And Frank says no. And Marcus says yes.
So you're
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So Rita Jennings says no, not at all. Camilis says, what Camilis says? Camilis says no. Terrence Roach says no. Cheryl Henry put a big. Okay, that's not a vote on the poll. Brent Hackshaw says yes. So that's our poll this morning. Are you in favor of firearm licenses being easier to get? That's our poll this morning. I know we're going to the 7 o'clock news shortly, so you can continue to vote on this poll throughout the day, not throughout the day.
Yeah, throughout the news. So when you come back, we just give you the balance.
We'll give you like 5 minutes after we come back, but we have to go to the news. But continue to vote. Are you in favor of firearm licenses being easier to get? That's our poll this morning. But of course, this is the point at which we go to our 7 a.m. news on the Breakfast Show.
The news you need, the clarity you deserve. Local, regional, global. This is Net Radio News Now.
This is your news update for Monday, May 19th, 2025. I am Amanda Mitchell with New Era TT Radio and M&E TV. The yellow level adverse weather alert has been extended to today. The Meteorological Office issued the first alert on May 17th, initially running to May 18th, but has now extended it to 6 p.m. today. The notice states there is an 80% chance of periods of intermittent rainfall, of varying intensities and isolated thunderstorms over Trinidad, especially across southern and central areas where recent rainfall has already saturated some locations. Tobago has a medium 60% chance of isolated heavy showers or thunderstorms. Despite the heavy rainfall, the country will continue to experience high levels of Saharan dust, which may reduce visibility and air quality. Opposition leader Penelope Beckles-Robinson has been endorsed by her colleagues for the post of People's National Movement political leader and is so far the only candidate vying for the position. If successful in her bid at the June 29th election convention, she will make history as the first woman to head the 69-year-old party. PNM PRO Faris Al-Rawi said members felt there should be unity of the offices of political leader and opposition leader. Key party members, including General Secretary Foster Cummings and San Fernando East MP Brian Manning, have expressed support for Beckles-Robinson. This is not her first bid for PNM leadership. In 2014, she lost to Dr. Keith Rowley, receiving 1,314 votes compared to his 18,070. A bitter multi-million-dollar legal battle is brewing between the children of the late Ish Galbaran Singh and Dagwood Investments Limited over ownership of shares in Royal Castle's parent company, International Castle Holdings Limited. The conflict revolves around a contested 100,000 share interest valued at $31.2 million. According to records, Galbarenzing divided his shares evenly among his children in 2016. But after his death in January 2024, the company's corporate secretary claimed the transfer was illegal, citing a bylaw that required shareholders to initially offer shares to ICHL and Dagwood Investments. The Galbarenzing siblings contend they are still the rightful owners of 25,000 shares each, as the company had no authority to change the register unilaterally. Former Water and Sewerage Authority Chairman Ravindra Nanga has accused Public Utilities Minister Barry Padarath of conducting a witch hunt by alleging corruption and wrongdoing by the former board. Nanga insists that during his 4-year tenure, WASA operated transparently and within the law. The dispute follows Padarath's claim that a WASA employee had assisted a PNM member in securing a $3 million contract just before the general election. Nanga questioned what Padarath was getting at and stated that no individual was awarded such a contract. Padarath fired back, saying a whistleblower provided the information and that if there's nothing to hide, then there is nothing to fear. Police have launched an investigation following the discovery of a man's body in a vehicle along Moonan Road, Wallafield, on Saturday morning. Officers responding to reports of a shooting found 33-year-old Stefan Joseph inside a light green Nissan Almera that had collided with a concrete wall. Joseph had multiple apparent gunshot wounds about the body. Crime scene investigators recovered 6 spent .40 caliber shells marked 40 Spear S&W from the scene. The investigation is being led by PC Ramdial. You are listening to news on New Era TT Radio. In regional news, the Pan American Health Organization reports that 3 Caribbean community countries have eliminated mother-to-child transmission of HIV and syphilis. In its 2024 annual report, PAHO states that Belize, Jamaica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines have achieved this milestone. The report also noted that PAHO's regional revolving funds facilitated access to 224 million vaccine doses and delivered 5 million treatments, reinforcing immunization programs and overall public health capacity. PAHO Director Dr. Jarbas Barbosa said, "In 2024, we launched powerful initiatives not only to detect and treat disease, but to transform the health systems. This is about building resilience so that our health systems don't just survive the next crisis, they are better prepared to respond." In international news, 2 people have died and more than a dozen others were injured after a Mexican Navy training ship struck the bottom of the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City. The ship, called Cuauhtemoc, was carrying 277 people when it lost power and struck the bridge, according to Mayor Eric Adams. A senior city official said the ship was moving in the wrong direction, pointing in part to the current of the East River. The ship was on a global goodwill tour and en route to Iceland at the time of the incident. It has been towed to Pier 36 for repairs. While there is some damage to the underside of the bridge, officials have determined it is not structural and the bridge remains safe. That concludes your news update for today. I'm Amanda Mitchell for New Era TT Radio and M&E TV. I've just learned that Wendell might not be joining us today, but the Breakfast Show with Richard and Sir Charles continues right after this short break.
That was news now. Stay informed with New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
Join Sir Charles for the mid-morning mix and mingle, where good music, real talk, health, and family matters come together, and your voice is heard. Whether you're at work, on the go, or just taking a break, this is the perfect mix to keep you engaged, informed, and entertained. The mid-morning mix and mingle, weekdays, 9 a.m. to 12 noon on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
Men, women, tired of the invasive, painful old methods of testing prostate and breasts?
The Institute of Health and Fitness Clinic and Wellness Center offers comprehensive non-invasive diagnostic testing, which indicates the nature and extent of diseases and tests your nutritional levels. Our quick testing can identify early signs of problems by evaluating many of the bodily functions, such as male and female sexual function, gastrointestinal function, liver function, kidney function, thyroid function, heart and brain function, and also cancer testing. Results are comparable with other medical lab tests without the use of needles or advancing specimen cups, and is pain-free. We also offer all natural treatments. Visit us now at number 79 St. Vincent Street, Tunapuna, or call 492-7397 or 289-6363.
Join me, Brother David Muhammad, every Tuesday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio, Powerful Radio. Join me to hear knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. Tuesdays, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. here on New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
Mornings just got better. You're locked into Net Radio Breakfast Show, fueling your day with the best music and real talk.
For all these blessings, we have to say thanks to the Almighty, man. Thanks. Yeah. Thanks. We are giving thanks. Yeah. Thanks. Come on. Come on now. Do it with me. For the festival, for the carnival, for the chance to see such love and harmony. You can't refuse it now, can't resist it now. I'm afraid to reveal exactly how we feel for celebration in the nation. Thanks for all this love, the blessing from above. Can't refuse it now, can't resist it now. Not afraid to show. Put your hand up so and put your hands where my eyes can see and give thanks for the festival. Put your hands where my eyes can see and give thanks for the carnival. Hey, 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 hey. Oh, oh, Thanks for the musicians, for the costume bands, for the melody taking over me.
Wake up, rise up. It's the Net Radio Breakfast Show, bringing you the energy, music, and vibes to start your day right.
All right, everybody, and of course, welcome inside a brand new hour here on New Era TT Radio. And we're happy that you are here. So glad to be in your company. So before we actually get into the show again, maybe you can continue to send your votes to 811-315. And we'll take that right after our weather update.
Good morning again, Trinidad and Tobago. This is your weather update for Monday, the 19th of May, 2025, from New Era TT Radio and M&E TV. We begin with an important notice. Adverse weather alert number 3, yellow level, is currently in effect and will end at 6 p.m. today. There is a medium chance, about 60%, of intermittent rainfall of varying intensities and isolated thunderstorms over Trinidad and to a lesser extent Tobago as the intertropical convergence zone gradually migrates northward. For today, expect partly cloudy and hazy conditions, becoming mostly cloudy at times with scattered showers or rain over most areas. There is a medium chance of isolated thunderstorms, mostly during the morning hours. Tonight will be partly cloudy and hazy with some isolated light to moderate showers over a few areas. Please note that with heavy downpours, expect gusty winds, street flooding, and ponding in flood-prone areas. There's also a heightened risk of landslides in vulnerable areas. Sahara dust remains present in our atmosphere, so sensitive persons should take necessary precautions. Temperature-wise, Trinidad can expect a maximum of 31 degrees Celsius with a minimum of 24 degrees Celsius, while Tobago will reach 30 degrees Celsius with a minimum of 25 degrees Celsius. The heat index will make it feel like 34 degrees Celsius in Trinidad and 33 degrees Celsius in Tobago. Sea conditions are moderate with wave heights of 2 to 2.5 meters in open waters and up to 1 meter in sheltered areas. High tides today in Port of Spain occur at 7:58 this morning and 9:39 tonight, with low tides at 1:55 early this morning and 2:54 this afternoon. This has been your weather update. Please stay safe, monitor conditions, and avoid floodwaters. From all of us at New Era TT Radio and M&E TV, stay alert and have a safe Monday.
Port of Spain, we are finally here. RSRR Productions, Married and Mischievous, finally comes to Port of Spain at Queen's Hall for 2 nights only on Saturday the 24th of May, 8:30 p.m. and Sunday the 25th at 6:30 p.m. Come see the play that everybody's talking about, strictly for adults only. The Scandalous, Married and Mischievous at Queen's Hall. Tickets available at all our usual outlets and at the Queen's Hall box office. This is not just a play, it's an experience. Don't miss it.
Great news, Caribbean. The Breakfast Show is now on M&E TV, bringing you entertaining conversations, vital information, and influential perspectives throughout Trinidad and Tobago and across the Caribbean region. Catch us on Digicel Channel 20, Flow Channel 111, Amplia Channel 117, Blink Channel 109, Tricode Channel 154, and Airlink Channel 10. The Breakfast Show connects with the Caribbean and Trinidad and Tobago like never before. We're now on M&E TV.
S&H Rumbox, 137 Western Main Road, St. James, for all your retail and wholesale needs for alcohol and non-alcoholic beverages. Call us at 686-0599 or visit us at 137 Western Main Road, St. James. S&H Rumbox, drinking out of the box.
Advertise with us on New Era TT Radio, the fastest growing streaming platform for talk in Trinidad and Tobago. Audio and video ads welcome. Elevate your brand with us. Connect with us at newerattradio@yahoo.com or call us at 299-5156. Now what are you waiting for?
All right, so we are back in the second hour of the Breakfast Show. And of course, let me just bring up the poll one more time so that people will see what the poll is for any last minute voting. People wanting to vote. Of course, that's our poll. Are you in favor of firearm licenses being easier to get? That's our poll this morning. Charles, are you in votes, whatever they were here? Let me see if I can find them.
I have just a couple more to add because Pauline said yes, Nikisha said yes, Anand says yes, and Sean Ram says no. Right. Do you have any more that came in on that side?
Yeah, Pearl Cordy said no. Robert Taylor said yes. Lennox Francis said no. Lennox Francois, said no. Dana Hamill said no. And Cheryl Henry said no. Those are the ones that I have. After Pearl Codis, let me see if anybody else said no. There's a lot of commentary going on. Back and forth. Beauty Culture said no. That's the only other one. Lots of discussion. Lots of to and fro on the comment section, so it's easy. It's not just a stream of votes. People commenting in between. So that's our poll for this morning. Are you in favor of farm licenses being easier to get? So that's our poll, and of course you can you would have weighed in, and Sir Charles is now going to give you the results.
Nice. So we had 39 people who weighed in on the poll today, and 22. It was actually running neck and neck all the time, 22 said no, and 17 said yes. So 17 said yes, 22 said no, 39 people on the poll.
All right, so great. So obviously the majority of people said no.
Yeah.
They don't think the majority. It's not a vast majority because it's still kind of pretty close. 17-22. So 22 people, the main saying they don't think it should be made easier. And
it was very close at the time, and it was actually even at the time.
Yeah, that's one of those kind of polls where people will be kind of equally divided about how they see stuff. But up next, we have at 7:20 a.m. and up next we have Carolyn Seepersad-Bachan joining us with our interview concerning, we're going to be talking energy in Trinidad and Tobago, and of course, generally about, where things are going from an energy perspective. Up next, it's our Let's Talk segment on The Breakfast Show. Good morning, Mrs. Seepersad-Bachan, and thank you for joining us on The Breakfast Show.
Good morning to you, Richard, and it's a pleasure being here. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, it's great to chat with you after all of this time. It's been a while since we spoke on air, so it's wonderful to have you with us this morning on The Breakfast Show.
Thank you.
All right, so let's dive straight into it because, of course, so many things happening in the energy sector because, of course, the government changed. Some of the major issues, of course, is Dragon Deal with Venezuela and the OFAC license being paused. And now you have movements being made by OWTU and concerned business interests in seeking financing to reopen the Petrotrin Refinery. So let's start right there. You're former Minister of Energy. What's your take and how do you see the reopening of the Petrotrin Refinery? What's your take on that? Let's start there.
Well, Richard, let me just start by saying I don't know you recall in 2019, I was one of those with the closure of Petrotrin 2018-2019 that did oppose, and I was in the public domain, making my statements that I was against the closure of Petrotrin for many reasons. And one of them being the impact on the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. More importantly, apart from the impact, if we look at the closure, when you mothball plants like Petrotrin, it's not easy to reopen. They did indicate at the time that they would have taken 12 months within a year to reopen the refinery, and we estimated the mothballing of that plant would cost you to keep it in that idle mode. And then secondly, if you are to reopen, it would take you about $1 billion to reopen it. Now, having said that, this is almost 6 years after. And reopening of this refinery is not something that we can take. It's not as simple as we think it is. And therefore, when, I did look on and I did see an article by the Confederation of Businesses in collaboration with the union speaking about the reopening of Petrotrin. There are many, many complex issues to be dealt with. One is you have to ensure and you have to re-inspect every plant in that in the refinery complex. You have to re-inspect every line, every fuel line, every tank storage must be re-inspected that has not been in use. We do not know how well that plant was mothballed. Because you must remember, at the time of the closure, there were so many contentious issues. And therefore, we now have to inspect every one of those reports that were completed, hopefully that they were completed, when the plants were being mothballed. Because we have to understand the condition of those plants. Take, for example, we would have to assume that if the cat cracker was mothballed, that the catalyst would have been removed, placed in the silos, and preserved effectively. We would have to ensure that we had put in the inert gases to ensure that our lines remain free from corrosion. You'd have to check over every boiler. So I could go on and on and on. The list is very long.
So is this? I mean, you said at the beginning that it would cost about $1 billion US. Is this a
US
is that $1 billion US total? Like the financing they're seeking, is it that they're going to go to international investors and say we need $1 billion US just to check the plant?
Just to reopen, just to bring it back up to operational mode. That would be the cost, but that was the original cost after a year. I don't know where the cost is now. It depends on the conditions of the plants. And I'm not trying to be a pessimist. I'm trying to be realistic and this has to be done in my view, by an independent a team, a company who is an expert in this area, in the reopening, the restartup, the recertification, and we have to ensure that we have environmental standards that we could look at. In addition to that, we now have to ensure that we have enough access. And you see, you raised the issue about financing, and I did note that. I do believe, however, reopening of the refinery would require a joint venture partner. More importantly, a joint venture partner with the deep pockets that bring the markets, that bring probably the crude. So one of the traders that we may have been working with in the past, that could suffice. But it is not necessary that we have to have equity crude. And that's one of the false narratives that went out there during the closure of Petrotrin, that we did not have enough crude to support the refining operations. All over the world, we have some of the largest, what we call merchant refiners who are able to source crude from other countries. I'll take, for example, Reliance, one of the largest, but they depend on a number of sources of crude to be able to feed the refinery, one of the largest refineries in the world. So I think it's important for us to assess the situation. Importantly, I do not think that they could bring back up the refinery in one go. I think they will have to bring it up in phases. You will have to look at some of the plants that are important that we can bring back up most certainly the crude distillation unit is of importance. You would want to be able to bring back up your jet A1, your alky, your acid, etc., your hydrotreaters. These are some of the things that you would have to look at. You have to make sure that we have natural gas available.
When we spoke to Dr. Krishna Persad a couple of weeks ago, of course, who has extensive energy experience in Trinidad and Tobago.
Correct.
He felt that it didn't make sense. I'm paraphrasing him, so excuse me, Dr. Persad, if you're listening. He felt it didn't make sense to reopen Petrotrin. He felt it should be sold off as scrap, and that you should build a new refinery from scratch and build a smaller, more efficient refinery that he figures would make more economic sense within the current, political, and not only political, but economic, and where fossil fuel lies in the world right now. And he felt that a smaller, more efficient refinery, very technologically advanced refinery, might be the better way to go in terms of the kind of money you're going to spend to reopen Petrotrin. So that was his opinion. He felt that was the better way to go.
Well, and I would imagine there is a viewpoint, and that will be based on the economic studies, but we have to also understand the kinds of investments we did have in Petrotrin. Just before the closure of that plant, you had a number of new plants that went into operation. Taxpayers' money, that went in. Overcost, yes, because there were a lot of, I don't know if you remember during that time from 2006 to 2010, we commented a lot on the runaway costs that took place with that refinery, that second phase of the refinery upgrade. And I want to distinguish it because there are different, there was a first refinery upgrade, which took place in 1990, 89-90 period, up to 1995. And one of the things that we always have to remember is that when you have a refinery upgrade, you always have to be able to ensure it wouldn't turn around within 1 year. This business is long term. We don't look at cash flows in just 1 year to be able to determine its viability. You have to do it over a number of years before you can do so. So I think one of the things that we have to understand is that there were fairly new plants. In terms of technology, yes, but we also had one of the most advanced DCS systems implemented in that Petrotrin refinery. Starting back as far back as 1990, when I first started as an engineer in 1987 in the first refinery upgrade, I was seconded from the university, and I did participate in in the conceptual engineering design and in the instrumentation side, which was the whole automation of the plant. And in those days, we had now started what was called distributed control systems. I don't want to go down the road with that, but it was a fiber optic network that was implemented to be able to run from these control rooms. So it's not to say the technology wasn't there. The technology was there, but it had to, of course, with technology, there are constant upgrades. So you would have continuously been upgrading your technology. From 2018 to now, I mean, I don't think there would be that much that you cannot upgrade at this point in time in terms of the technology. I think the more critical factor is to determine what is the condition of the plant and machinery in the refinery. It depends on the condition.
Yeah, you know what I kind of is in the back of my mind, Mrs. Seepersad-Bachan, the issue of you are mothballing a plant at the point that it was mothballed. And I think that was under Patrick Manning, was it? I think it was.
No, it was mothballed in 2019 under the Dr. Keith Rowley administration.
Okay. Mm-hmm. All right, okay. My memory about when it was mothballed.
Yeah.
You're mothballing a refinery that you have to have you made a decision to mothball it. But you must have had a plan and said, okay, we're going to find a private person or private company to restart this refinery. So in the interim, a lot of the infrastructure there should be kept up to some level of maintenance for whenever that happens. So are you saying that there was absolutely no ongoing maintenance during this long period that we have had with that refinery being mothballed? It was just left as is?
The issue is we don't know. That's the problem. We don't know. There's not much information coming out, and what I'm saying is before you reopen any plant, you have to go through this process and you have to recertify. And once you close, whether it was within 6 months or a year to reopen, even if you were maintaining effectively and efficiently, it will take you $1 billion. You see, things like the jet fuel. Jet fuel is a very critical process, and therefore that has to follow certain standards, very, very stringent standards for recertification because of the issue we're dealing with, the safety issues for jet. So therefore it's not as easy if you want to be accepted, if it is going to be accepted by the purchasers who would be the airlines themselves, then you have to go through this process. That's all I'm saying. Sometimes closing a plant and reopening is more costly than keeping it running until you find your buyer or whatever plans that you may have had in place. That's why people don't shut down plants as easily as we think, because they put into it a number of issues. Bearing in mind that I've always maintained that the whole analysis in the closure of Petrotrin, there was this false narrative that went in that it was losing this amount of billions and so on, was so unfortunate that we carried on with that narrative without a proper analysis. That analysis would have showed you that there was never a cash loss. I will continue to maintain that for the rest of my life based on the analysis that we have done, that there was never a cash loss at Petrotrin. Petrotrin, it met all its obligations, its financial obligations, its international debt obligations. The refinery paid for that. If you look at the financials, you will see that they had a cash surplus, not a cash loss. There was a book loss, and that book loss, and let me repeat this, there was a book loss because at the time when they were the auditors, and correctly, rightly so, the decision was taken to shorten the lifespan of the various plants because they felt the lifespan was not in keeping with their accounting standards. And in shortening the lifespan, there was this one-off cost that hit the books that caused you to show this big net loss. And that net loss was not a cash loss, it was a book loss. That was the important issue. So in terms of Petrotrin being able to meet its tax obligations, meeting its debt obligation, it was paying the debt, I did not understand. And then important in there is that did we analyze the impact of the closure of Petrotrin on the economy of Trinidad and Tobago? And someone reminded me recently that when IDB did this project when the first refinery upgrade, and it was funded by IDB. IDB told the government and Petrotrin that before we take any further decisions, we must do that country impact assessment. And that country impact assessment means that you need to understand the impact, not only, you have to look at all the intangible benefits of the refinery operation. I would say similar to the Carolyn type operation. And therefore, you have to look at issues such as, what was the impact on the service providers, contractors, training, skills development, employment opportunities, impact on the fence line communities, etc. Remember, Petrotrin spanned the whole of South Trinidad. You have operations all in Penal, in Faizabad, etc., going way deep south. So it's not only located, it's not localized to Pointe-a-Pierre alone. And in Pointe-a-Pierre, you had the tremendous impact on the defense line communities. More importantly, the impact on foreign exchange earnings. Petrotrin had access to the premium Caribbean market, supplied that market, and therefore was able, with its local value added in the refining process, the production of its equity crude, in some cases, importation, yes, of imported crude, and this is where most people sort of distorted the story, the importation of that crude. Yes, there was a foreign exchange outflow, but by the time you add on your local value by passing it through the refining process and making a refining margin, that profit was generated in terms of foreign exchange when you sold it in the premium market. So two things happened, and you would have seen that in the article by the Confederation of Business Associations when they spoke about the impact on foreign exchange, which Mr. Imbert himself, then Minister of Finance, admitted to the drain on our foreign exchange and having to import fuel for domestic consumption, which could have been produced locally with local value input. And then on top of that, the loss of foreign exchange earnings in selling to the premium Caribbean market. So,
So is it that you're saying that it was a mistake to close the refinery? That's the sense I'm getting. It was a mistake. That was a mistake. 1 to 10, how bad a mistake was it?
It was a terrible mistake. If I take one as the worst or 10 as the worst?
10 as the worst.
10 as the worst. Because if you think about it, it just did not make any economic sense. If you had done the economic analysis, that would not have indicated, and this is why we kept asking, where is the report that suggested to close this refinery? You kept saying there was a McKinsey report. I don't know if you remember that debate, but we never saw the report. On what basis? Now, having said that, there are 2 points I want to make. One is that, and this is not from Carolyn, this is from Moody's and others. At the time of the closure of the refinery, the refining margins were set to take off. The markets would turn, markets go through cycles. And therefore, the refining margin was expected to be at its highest. And it did. Hence the reason why Trinidad and Tobago suffered so much in foreign exchange output to purchase fuels for domestic consumption. That's one issue. The second issue, having said all what we have said, I'm not saying that there were not improvements to be made at Petrotrin. Of course there were. There were several errors, there were several mistakes, and there were several reports that spoke to that. Paid for consultancies, including Shell Global, including Solomon and Associates, and they identified so many areas of improvement that will not only affect the bottom line, but will impact positively on the economy of Trinidad and Tobago. So I'm talking about in terms of how you improve on your refinery. We could have increased the refinery margin. They talked about the less efficiencies in terms of energy wastage in the refinery itself, in terms of the skill sets that were being used. So there were many flaring issues like that could have added to what we call the bottom line. So
but at this point, because you have the OWTU and the concerned business interests apparently going to seek international financing, if you had to answer that bottom line question about does restarting the Petrotrin refinery make economic sense, how would you answer?
I would first, before answering that, we have to do that assessment to be able to determine what is the cost of reopening the refinery. If it's $1 billion, I think it can. I do not think, again, to the business model that is going to be instituted, as we have to be careful with. I do not feel that we could put a drain on the Treasury. I did note in the article itself, it spoke about going to the international financial markets for funding. My concern with that is that we're going for debt financing. Debt financing means sometimes that if we're going to be leveraging again. Who is going to guarantee that debt? The second issue is when you saw some portion of it as equity financing. This is why I speak to a joint venture partner. It spells better confidence for anybody coming, even for the debt financing options that you would have. So I still believe that in terms of, I don't believe this could be locally owned 100%. I know that is what is being proposed. I believe you do need a joint venture partner. You do need someone to bring equity financing to the project, at least some percentage of it, and then you can secure your debt financing to support the reopening of the refinery. Because very importantly there, if you want to instill confidence in the international bankers or so on, international financial institutions that will support this exercise financially, they have to be confident that the returns to be generated from this plant will be able to support and service the loans. And in order to do so, you have to ensure that you do have a joint venture partner who will bring the technology, the wherewithal, who will be able to bring the needed working capital to restart the refinery. And very important in there, bring in the markets, the crude, etc., that would be required to supply as a feedstock for the refinery.
Wouldn't we be able to get some of that crude from the developments taking place in Guyana? Or that would be something that you'd have to negotiate with the private operators in Guyana.
Correct. And I think that issue has been coming up over and over. You would have to, and if you look at that operation, that's a very big operation right now. And they use an FPSO and they ship directly from the FPSO to wherever their destination markets are. And those destinations, we're talking about ExxonMobil, it's going to be a refinery. So to displace that, it has to make economic sense to them, for them to bring it to Trinidad, for it to be refined in Trinidad. So that is an issue, but however, Guyana is not the only option. You do have other South American options available to you. We have done it in the past. I mean, remember, it was almost like a merchant refinery in the days of Texaco. Texaco imported most of its crude from other countries to be able to refine in those days the Texaco refinery. So I'm not too worried about the crude issues. The supply of crude. What I am concerned is that you do bring someone who has access to it. And that is in terms of their trading agreements that they would have with other suppliers of crude.
But Trinidad and Tobago would have lost considerable, I guess, downstream petrochemical investment in recent years, I suppose because of the inability to provide stable gas because of our depleting reserves that we have. What would it take to reverse that trend, in your opinion?
You're talking about the gas shortfall that we're talking about?
I'm talking about the investment in the petrochemical sector from international players. But you have some pulling out of Trinidad. You have some who are pretty much steadfastly invested in here. But what would it take to increase that petrochemical investment in Trinidad, in your opinion?
Well, we must remember, first of all, we do have a shortfall in gas, hence the reason for the idle plants in Point Lisas. You would recall that we are probably about 42% less than where we are supposed to be. We should really be up to 4 BCF per day, but we are not. I think we are down now to about almost 2.7, and that was because of the decline. So there are two issues that cause that. I mean, one is that there was always with gas, whenever you start producing, there's a natural decline of the fields. Secondly, our failure to continue to keep the exploration drive on the go. I've always maintained, I mean, I remember from the family administration, and I did have some exposure there during the period of 1995 to 2000. And during that period, we always maintained the benchmark that we must run 2 bid rounds per year. Because when you talk about exploration, from the time of a bid round to the time of development and first gas, you could almost reach almost 20 years sometimes, depending on the nature of the fields that we are dealing with. The issue is we never kept up with exploration and development. And Richard, probably I was on this program several times. I was a senator at the time in 2002. You would recall that when we went to LNG, but even before that, under the Pandey administration, coming to the end of the Pandey administration, before the sign off of the trains 2 and trains 3, we did have an issue, and there was a conflict. There was some controversy over the issue of what we call signing off on those 2 trains without first getting work, what we call work obligations, commitments to those work obligations to continue exploration, to prove up your gas reserve. So you would recall that I always spoke about the reserve to production ratio. And because when trains 2 and 3 started, eventually we started falling to 10 years, which is not enough to allow for future investors coming into the downstream sector to be confident, because payback periods for plants are close to 20 years. And we had experienced that ourselves when, with North Hydro. I was recalling this, I was, remembering this, and we had this issue with North Hydro, who did not want to invest in an aluminum smelter because at the time they said they needed at least 20 years to be confident. Subsequent to that, in the Senate, I would have maintained that position because I kept saying, if you don't prove up, how are you going to come? We are going to end up with a shortfall. We then signed off on LNG trains 4 after 2002, and we said there was going to be a major depletion of your gas reserve. Therefore, we need to ensure that again, that as part of the signing of this agreement, that we have a work commitment, a commitment for work obligations that will continue an exploration drive. That did not happen. So now today, what we are saying, and it's a little unfair to the country to come now like if we are surprised that this has happened to us. We were predicting this as far back as 2002, that you would end up with this shortfall. And because of this shortfall, your very same petrochemical plants downstream will suffer. When I came in 2010 as a Minister of Energy, that's the first thing we did. Start back with 2 bid rounds per year. Unfortunately, it didn't continue after 2011. We didn't continue with that frequency. And in it, we did award a number of bids. We did a shallow water round and we did a deep water round. Just to give you an example again, the deep water round that was opened when we closed the shallow bed round in September of 2010, we opened the deep water and we closed it in January 2011, and we had the results ready within three months. 2 of those blocks that came out of that is what we are talking about today as the Calypso field. And we still have not reached final investment decision as yet. How many years ago? I'm trying to make the point about the time span. That was 2010. We're 2011. Where are we? 2025. So energy, when we talk about exploration and production, this is long term. Whenever we speak to, first gas and when we need gas. And it's important for us. I know that there's been a lot of criticism about fiscal incentives and, giving away too much. But it depends on your policy. If your policy is to drive upstream, then probably it would be better that you give the fiscal incentives to do it. Because downstream is where you generate the foreign exchange, where you're generating all the jobs. It's what we call the knock-on effect. It's where you're generating all the service industries. When you look at the downtime now in the Point Easters Industrial Estate, look at how many companies have had to fold, like Petrotrin. The impact on the economy around the Point Easters Industrial Estate, if we look at it, we will see what we call that knock-on effect. So therefore, if we want to look at this foreign exchange issue that we are dealing with, we need to restart and make sure that we get back the capacity for the downstream sector to be able, in the petrochemical sector, to be able to generate the kind of foreign exchange that we need. I think that the last administration focused so much on Venezuela gas that they, and in a supply basket like that, I kept saying, I said it many times, that we were not diversifying that supply basket. And you cannot put all your eggs in one basket. Fine, it's good to say we are discussing, And we are exploring and we are looking at gas, but you need to counter that with other sources as well. Not only Venezuela, because of the geopolitical risk that we will experience.
Which we are experiencing right now because of the OFAC licenses.
But we predicted that a long time ago because we have always had this situation with Venezuela. Look how long ago we signed on Laura and Manatee, which was in 2010 again. We signed the unitization agreement in 2010. I went to Venezuela in August and signed that. Where are we today? We have gone through a process now of having to deunitize that field because of the geopolitical risk. So it's important, and I'm not saying no. I mean, having said that, I do want to say I keep hearing dragon gas is dead and, cocaine and mannequin is dead. I hope not. I mean, I thought when I heard the Prime Minister saying that, she got this call from Marco Rubio, and based on what was reported in the public domain, there seemed to be a lot of hope with respect to, and one of the issues discussed was energy security. That was hopeful, in my view, that there was a possibility. And where we are today, we do need to get, if we could get dragon gas on board and cocaine or mannequin, we need it because all the projects we are talking about are for very long term. First gas from these projects are not going to be until 2031, 2032. While we welcome discussions with Grenada, we welcome discussions with Guyana and Suriname and all of these countries, fine. But those are long-term projects. Grenada, for example, and let me just say this very quickly. Grenada is the U.S. Geological Society have identified a number of deposits since 2012. The Caribbean Basin, this South American area, there are a number of conventional hydrocarbon sources, but not every one of them will be economically exploitable. So let's make that point. However, they did identify a number of areas starting as far north in the Caribbean region as Bahamas, coming all the way south, and for example, including the Guyana-Suriname Basin. And the Guyana-Suriname Basin has proven what the Geological Society is saying as accurate. Okay, that report in 2012. One of the areas identified is the Tobago Trough, which is an area between Trinidad and Tobago and Grenada. In 2010, we did sign off on what we call, because before you could start looking at cross-border fields there, you have to get what we call the delimitation treaty. That was signed. And the reason for signing that delimitation treaty in accordance with the UN Convention was to ensure that if there are any cross-border deposits, hydrocarbon deposits, that it will be developed together, collaboratively and jointly, because you don't want to damage the reservoir. It's inefficient for two sides, for two countries to be exploring and producing from the same reservoir that may be straddling the delimitation line. That is a point that was made. And since then, that agreement says that. Thereafter, I remember meeting with Mr. Tillman, who was then Prime Minister. He came back. We spoke about energy cooperation, and an energy cooperation agreement hammered out. Eventually, it was signed. So there is energy cooperation between the two countries. But if you look at Grenada's situation, Grenada has started some work. They did do the nutmeg, but then they capped it. They have their own issues in terms of how they gave out their blocks to GPG, which was a Russian-based company. And then thereafter, GPG entered into agreements with a Nigerian company called Ocean View. All of those issues now has captured the attention of the government, and they have put in a technical working group to assess that situation. What that tells you is that you're not going to get any gas, if there is, because it has not delineated any reservoir as yet. Any first gas is not coming until after 2030. Having said that, like the case of the Guyana and Suriname, similar situation, if there is any gas to come from those countries, it's not going to come before 2030. The issue that we have to remember that any government has a responsibility to explore discussions for long-term development. It's not only about your five-year term. So yes, I think this government will show some responsibility by starting those discussions. But thinking that those discussions will bear any immediate fruit to solve the problem, our immediate term problem of the shortfall in the petrochemical sector and in the production of LNG, that I don't see as being realistic. Having said all of that, I also want to say that we have to be careful when we're talking about Guyana and Suriname. We have to be able to ensure that that is also an economically viable project. Piping gas from Suriname to Trinidad or Guyana, it's the same, by the way, it's the same area because it's a cross-border field between Guyana and Suriname. And most of the gas is east of their existing operations in Guyana, which is close to the border with Suriname. That gas, if it's coming there, one, it may have to pass through Venezuelan territorial waters. Secondly, we have to understand what will be the net back price. Because what price are you going to be selling to the downstream petrochemical sector? We have to make sure that we are able to pay a price upstream. Look at the cost of piping that gas to Trinidad and Tobago, which is going to be very high. And then final destination price to the Point Resource Industrial Estate to ensure that those products, methanol and ammonia, can be exported at a competitive price given the new tariff structure put on by the Trump administration. We have to remember that. All of those products will have to be reduced in pricing to be able to meet those new tariff structures. And the new tariff structures. The second issue that we have to be mindful of, Richard, is that the Trump administration is also trying to drive up their own gas production by opening up their own existing reserves because they want to reactivate idle petrochemical plants in the U.S. So these plants here in Trinidad will be competing with those. Many of them, the investors for these plants are also investors in those plants in the U.S. So, these are the issues that we have to take on board, when we're discussing.
Are you optimistic that we can navigate these issues? Because, I know there's a certain amount of exploration taking place. It may not be enough, I suppose, in your mind. But there is some exploration taking place in Trinidad and Tobago waters with regard to additional possible gas finds. Are you optimistic about that kind of exploration? Do you think it should be more?
I'm optimistic about it. My concern is the time frame. I'm optimistic that we will eventually, because I think the deepwater acreage has great potential. It's just the time for it to be developed from signing on to development to first gas. The second issue, if you look at what has been happening even in our shallow water areas, there's been a number of developments. You have had changes. You had Perenco, for example, who has taken over because they are more experts in what we call mature provinces. And therefore, they were able to buy out some of the TSP assets. And I see, with their Onyx, there's already some gas finds here. So there are, again, they're now moving towards what we call the final investment decision phase, I think. And therefore, I don't know how long they will take to bring first gas. We did see some rather, promising results from others. Having said that, this last administration did start their exploration drive and started running a bid round per year, which is where you're now seeing some of these contracts being signed with. So therefore, again, which was a good start. So we do have some of these projects on the pipeline. As I said before, again, whether it is SIP, whether it is ginger, whether it is coconut, we do have some of them. Is what is the time frame for bringing these on board? They have some gas, they have 1 TCF here, 1 TCF there, which could help. The SIP project is expected to bring in at least 250 million scos per day. Ginger, another 350. But when is the startup? One is the startup in 2025. That 250 could take us, but very little. It's not going to carry us very far. And then on the other in 2027. So all of these are based on what was reported. Again, I do want to make a point about the Calypso field, which is something that we should be focusing on. Calypso is almost 3-point-something TCF. It's close to what was the Dragon, the gas. That is made up of 2 blocks. An example there of that is that we need to, as you said, navigating issues. That was a result of the award in 2011 of 3 out of 3 or 4 deepwater blocks that were awarded coming out of that bid round. 2 of those blocks, 23A and 14, those blocks, sometimes what happens to us is that when we do set up contractual blocks, we do it with the intent that the geological formations fit within a block. It doesn't always happen that way. And you end up with a straddling block. Just the same way we have a cross-border field, you have a straddling reservoir that may cross over from one block to another. In that situation, what happens is the contract calls for what we call unitization. As soon as they detect that it is struggling, they're supposed to notify the ministry, which they did. And then from there, they either proceed to negotiate what we call a unitization of the two blocks and who will become the operator. If they cannot voluntarily reach that agreement, then they're compelled to unitize by the minister. The problem I had with that Calypso field taking so long is that happened so long ago, and we have taken years to arrive at this.
But I'm concerned that. But why do we take so long to make those kind of decisions?
The unitization of the discussion took so long, so they would have to go through a process of negotiation between the parties. They'll go through a pre-unitization phase. My issue has always been, I saw somewhere in an article recently that someone was saying when you look at the bid round, from the time you launch a bid round to signing of an agreement takes 2 years. I don't agree with that, because at my experience, that may have been so in the 90s and the early 2000s, but no, in 2010, we got it down from 3 to 6 months. Okay, that you could put out a bid round, put it for 4 months out there, open it, close it within the 4 months, and then 2 months after you have your results and a signing of contracts. We did that. So it's not to say it cannot happen. So the point I'm trying to make is that I think one of the things that the Ministry of Energy needs to look at is the unitization process, because we're going to find ourselves in more situations like this. You're going to find more blocks with straddling reservoirs because of where we are. You're going to have because of relinquishment and so on. There are a number of those that are going to crop up again. And therefore, they need to find a process that will move smoother. Probably they may need to look at the possibility of an interim agreement for joint operation between the two parties, allowed not because we don't down tools. We could probably continue to operate, and any monies generated put into escrow, because it is a disservice to everyone, the country and the investors. Because when that period is there and you have nothing going on, remember this is investments tied up by investors, multinational companies in these blocks that is doing nothing.
Yeah.
Right? So these are issues again too that they may have to look at if they want to look at proving up our local acreage, whether in the shallow or deep water. I feel there'll be a lot in deep water, and I'll say this about deep water. The deep water, what you're doing to try to make it economically viable is that you have to ensure that there's sharing of infrastructure. That's another type of unitization that could go on among operators, in that you would not try to justify Calypso by bringing subsea infrastructure straight in to the shores of Trinidad and Tobago. You try to tie it into existing infrastructure. So you'll bring your pipeline probably to a point where you could tie it. It's the same thing with some of the other projects that was able to tie into the Juniper platform because of the existing infrastructure. We have to look for ways. What I'm trying to say is we have to continue to explore ways, which we did. In 2010, we started that whole process. Let's reopen these contracts, these production sharing contracts, to ensure that we could have sharing of infrastructure so that we could, improve on the economics of the cost, the efficiencies, so that we could bring down the cost of the natural gas being produced or oil. And that way it is a benefit to everyone, the country, and a benefit to the investors as well.
Yeah. You're so knowledgeable about this, Carolyn. Because you have so much information in your head, and I'm wondering whether Dr. Moonilal shouldn't second you or make you some sort of person in the Ministry of Energy, because you have been there, you know it, you've been there for a couple of years, you know the industry, you know what's and you can't obviously you keep tabs on what's happening in terms of what's happening in the energy industry and where it should go. So obviously you have a kind of resource. You have that kind of resource in other people too, but you understand the politics of it and how policy making versus private sector thinking and how the two intersect, which is an important skill set, So.
Well, Richard, I want to say, one of the things it was a learning experience to me. Remember, I started off from the university and joined the Petrotrin project in 1987, and at that point in time, I joined the design team to go to Houston to do the conceptual engineering phase of that first refinery upgrade. One of the things that happened to me during the years, because I did sit on boards, but I was sitting on private sector boards. And then as you would recall, I became chairman of NP. And when I became chairman of NP, there was quite an eye-opener for me in terms of what you just said. A very important point. The issue between public sector approaches, the private sector approaches. We have to be able to appreciate the difference. What you do in private sector, you cannot take and bring it into the public sector. It doesn't work that way. Because you see, the public sector has critical services that it is working with. There's a policy framework that you must work with. In a private sector company, and especially if you're talking about a smaller company, you have the right, you have the authority to be able to implement very quickly. That doesn't happen as easily. You have to look at your regulatory frameworks when you're in the public sector. You have to look at your policy framework and ensure that you're always consistent with it. If it means, therefore, that, like we just talked a little bit about, if we have to change the way we do business because we're expecting more and more of unitization, more and more joint operation, then you can't just force it. In fact, one of the things that you have to be very careful about is stability. And stability means that you have to guarantee investors, because we're guided. A private sector company will not be guided by, bilateral investment treaties. We are in the public service, so every one of these investors in this country who comes to this country in the energy sector would have set up, this country would have set up what is called a bilateral investment treaty with that home country to ensure that their investment is protected here in Trinidad and Tobago. Because these are some of the things that we implement to make sure that Trinidad and Tobago is a safe haven for investment protection. And therefore, this is why I always used to make the point, many, many years ago, when I was in the Senate, I used to make a point. This is why gas price in Trinidad could be $1 and $1.20 and $1.50 and whatever at the wellhead. But you will get the same gas in Guyana for 50 cents. Because they don't have, the risk is so much higher because they don't have the same level of investment protection. Okay, and then now we have gone to investment facilitation and all of that now. So those, in the trade business. The point I'm trying to make is a very important point you touched on. If you are going to do this, you have to always ensure that you are consistent with your agreements. You have to ensure that with your private agreements, with your overall treaty agreements, international law, and you have to make sure that your regulations and your legislative and regulatory framework is also consistent with it. Yeah. So you're constantly tweaking it to ensure, because other than that, you lose investor confidence. So, for example,
I get you. Yeah, but anyway, that's what we're going to have to leave this morning. I mean, time has, caught us, and it's a little after 8 already. So thank you so much, Carolyn Seepersad-Bachan, for speaking with us this morning. We appreciate your expertise on the topic and your passion for the topic, and we appreciate you taking the time to speak with us on the Breakfast Show.
Thank you, Richard. It was a pleasure being here. And let me just say thank you to God bless to you and your listeners.
All right, thank you so much, Carol. All right, so that was Carolyn Seepersad-Bachan, of course, Minister of Energy, former Minister of Energy and Energy Affairs under the People's Partnership. And of course, you could tell kind of expertise that she has with regard to discussing this issue. But of course, we are a little after 8, so let me just shut up and go straight to the 8 o'clock news.
The news you need, the clarity you deserve. Local, regional, global. This is Net Radio News Now.
This is your news update for Monday, May 19th, 2025. I am Amanda Mitchell with New Era TT Radio and M&E TV. The yellow level adverse weather alert has been extended to today. The Meteorological Office issued the first alert on May 17th, initially running to May 18th, but has now extended it to 6 p.m. today. The notice states there is an 80% chance of periods of intermittent rainfall, of varying intensities and isolated thunderstorms over Trinidad, especially across southern and central areas, where recent rainfall has already saturated some locations. Tobago has a medium 60% chance of isolated heavy showers or thunderstorms. Despite the heavy rainfall, the country will continue to experience high levels of Saharan dust, which may reduce visibility and air quality. Opposition leader Penelope Beckles-Robinson has been endorsed by her colleagues for the post of People's National Movement political leader and is so far the only candidate vying for the position. If successful in her bid at the June 29th election convention, she will make history as the first woman to head the 69-year-old party. PNM PRO Faris Al-Rawi said members felt there should be unity of the offices of political leader and opposition leader. Key party members, including General Secretary Foster Cummings and San Fernando East MP Brian Manning, have expressed support for Beckles-Robinson. This is not her first bid for PNM leadership. In 2014, she lost to Dr. Keith Rowley, receiving 1,314 votes compared to his 18,070. A bitter multi-million-dollar legal battle is brewing between the children of the late Ish Galbaran Singh and Dagwood Investments Limited over ownership of shares in Royal Castle's parent company, International Castle Holdings Limited. The conflict revolves around a contested 100,000 share interest valued at $31.2 million. According to records, Galbaran Singh divided his shares evenly among his children in 2016. But after his death in January 2024, the company's corporate secretary claimed the transfer was illegal, citing a bylaw that required shareholders to initially offer shares to ICHL and Dagwood Investments. The Galbaran Singh siblings contend they are still the rightful owners of 25,000 shares each, as the company had no authority to change the register unilaterally. Former Water and Sewerage Authority Chairman Ravindra Nanga has accused Public Utilities Minister Barry Padarath of conducting a witch hunt by alleging corruption and wrongdoing by the former board. Nanga insists that during his 4-year tenure, WASA operated transparently and within the law. The dispute follows Padarath's claim that a WASA employee had assisted a PNM member in securing a $3 million contract just before the general election. Nanga questioned what Padarath was getting at and stated that no individual was awarded such a contract. Padarath fired back, saying a whistleblower provided the information and that if there's nothing to hide, then there is nothing to fear. Police have launched an investigation following the discovery of a man's body in a vehicle along Moonan Road, Wallafield, on Saturday morning. Officers responding to reports of a shooting found 33-year-old Stefan Joseph inside a light green Nissan Almera that had collided with a concrete wall. Joseph had multiple apparent gunshot wounds about the body. Crime scene investigators recovered 6 spent .40 caliber shells marked 40 Spear S&W from the scene. The investigation is being led by PC Ramdial. You are listening to news on New Era TT Radio. In regional news, the Pan American Health Organization reports that 3 Caribbean community countries have eliminated mother-to-child transmission of HIV and syphilis. In its 2024 annual report, PAHO states that Belize, Jamaica, and St. Vincent and the Grenadines have achieved this milestone. The report also noted that PAHO's regional revolving funds facilitated access to 224 million vaccine doses and delivered 5 million treatments, reinforcing immunization programs and overall public health capacity. PAHO Director Dr. Jarbas Barbosa said, "In 2024, we launched powerful initiatives not only to detect and treat disease, but to transform the health systems. This is about building resilience so that our health systems don't just survive the next crisis, they are better prepared to respond." In international news, 2 people have died and more than a dozen others were injured after a Mexican Navy training ship struck the bottom of the Brooklyn Bridge in New York City. The ship, called Cuauhtemoc, was carrying 277 people when it lost power and struck the bridge, according to Mayor Eric Adams. A senior city official said the ship was moving in the wrong direction, pointing in part to the current of the East River. The ship was on a global goodwill tour and en route to Iceland at the time of the incident. It has been towed to Pier 36 for repairs. While there is some damage to the underside of the bridge, officials have determined it is not structural and the bridge remains safe. That concludes your news update for today. I'm Amanda Mitchell for New Era TT Radio and M&E TV. I've just learned that Wendell might not be joining us today, but the Breakfast Show with Richard and Sir Charles continues right after this short break.
That was news now. Stay informed with New Era TT Radio, Net Radio.
Port of Spain, we are finally here. RSRR Productions, Married and Mischievous, finally comes to Port of Spain at Queen's Hall for 2 nights only on Saturday the 24th of May, 8:30 p.m. and Sunday the 25th at 6:30 p.m. Come see the play that everybody's talking about, strictly for adults only. The Scandalous, Married and Mischievous at Queen's Hall. Tickets available at all our usual outlets and at the Queen's Hall box office. This is not just a play, it's an experience. Don't miss it.
All right, so this is where we wrap it up on the Breakfast Show this morning. So thanks for joining us on this Monday morning. Interesting conversation with Carolyn Seepersad-Bachan, and who's obviously so very knowledgeable on the energy sector. But this is where we wrap it up. And of course, so thank you so much for joining us. And remember to like and subscribe. It's important to do that, so please do it. And of course, we'll speak to you bright and early tomorrow morning. And remember to smile and laugh. It's great for your health.
Yeah, well, hopefully, when we get through with all his flood relief things that he's working on right now, and should be back with us tomorrow. But people, don't go anywhere, because remember, we continue on www.neweradio.com. You can get us there, and you're also on TuneIn, New Era TT Radio, right? So look out for us. Stay with us.
All right, so this has been the Breakfast Show.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah.